So wait, tell me about some of your first crew competitions. Did you cox in your freshman year at college?
Well, I need to continue with the story of
All right.
rowing on Lake Mendota. But I was telling you about how we rowed on the Yahara River and then would go out on Lake Monona and
Yep.
row. And sometimes we were out there rowing when there was still ice on the lake. And you had to be very careful as a coxswain to steer clear of the ice because running into ice would damage the boat.
Yeah.
Well, then after practice, we would bring the boats ashore and put them in these temporary metal buildings. And the coach would say, good practice, head for the gym,
Yep.
which meant a 2-mile run
Wow.
through the city
Wow.
to the
Oh yeah, across the isthmus.
to the Red Gym.
Yeah.
And this we always enjoyed doing because the last quarter mile was down Langdon Street
Right.
in Madison, where all the sorority houses were.
Nice.
And it was fun because the sorority girls would just be coming out of classes, and it was fun to stop down on the wet snow sidewalks
Right.
and splash water on their legs. And then we
Come in.
Hi, Mr. Roy, are you coming to eat?
No,
Thank you.
Thank you.
and then well, in those days, there was no close competition.
Mhm.
When I say close, I mean mileage-wise.
Oh, other universities that were close by. Yeah.
So the nearest competition was either on the East Coast or the West Coast,
Wow.
or maybe some in Ohio. As a freshman, I coxed a freshman race against Culver Military Academy, which I think is in Indianapolis, Indiana.
I don't think I've ever heard of it. Yeah.
You know, it was a boys' prep school. And that was my first year of rowing. Well, our target was to go to the Poughkeepsie Regatta in June,
Uh huh.
which was a national competition.
Okay.
And about that time, the coach came up in and said, Roy, Bobby Moore weighs 10 pounds less than you do. And so I'm going to make him the
Wow.
coxswain of the freshman crew. He said, but you're too much of a student of rowing and too much of a leader. And we don't have any money in the budget to send you to Poughkeepsie, New York with the crew. However, we're going to load the shells up in a baggage car, and we're going to take the coaching launch, which was the Chris Crafts.
Mhm.
And he said, you'll notice that the front of the Chris Crafts has a storage area. He said, if you would get in there and nobody would know you were there, you'll eventually wind up in Poughkeepsie, New York. So,
How far is that in the train, Dad?
well, 800 or 900 miles at least, maybe more. So I told my aunt, whom I was living with, what was going on. So I had a little satchel, which is like a doctor's bag,
Yeah.
and we put some sandwiches in that and some extra clothes. And when they loaded the boats, I snuck up under the clubs, and they closed the thing. They closed the
Close the doors. Yeah.
closed the doors, and in a couple hours, I had this jerk, which meant the train was starting, and it took about 2 days to get.
And you were locked inside the boxcar for 2 days.
I was locked inside the boxcar, and then when we finally got once I got rolling, I got out from my hiding place,
Yeah.
that I could move around the inside of the boxcar. And I remember going through Cleveland and going through Pittsburgh and eventually winding up at Poughkeepsie.
How dark was it in the boxcar?
Oh, there was enough light.
Enough light, yeah.
Coming in there. At Poughkeepsie, it was the site of the regatta for many, many years. So schools, rowing schools had boathouses on the river, including the U.S. Navy.
Mhm.
Well, the rowing coach had made an agreement with Navy that we would rent or occupy the Navy boathouse. But he said to me, Roy, we've got to hire you to serve the meals and wash the dishes after practice. So I did that. But
When he said you have to hire you, does that mean he paid you, or was that just a task assigned to you?
it was the reduction from the budget.
Reduction from the budget, all right?
I didn't see any money,
Right.
but that was money.
You're saving the team money.
That was money they saved because they didn't have to
Hire someone.
some
Wow,
local-
yeah.
local people. So I would go out and practice with the. We had a freshman 8, and we had a varsity 8, and then we had a couple of spares. And we called that the pickle boat.
Okay.
So I coxed the pickle boat.
Uh-huh.
And then I mentioned that the coach was an innovator, and it's recorded in the history of Wisconsin crew. There was a coxswain. I was a coxswain in a 4 that had Lou Nova, who was a heavyweight boxing championship, who was going to fight for the national championship.
Uh-huh.
And there was Allison Danzig, who was a sports writer for the New York Times, and a couple of other celebrities, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And it was fun because they had
No idea how to
knowledge
row.
of rowing, and I was afraid I would never get back to shore.
But you made it.
So that was fun. Then they had a coxswain's race. I rowed in a boat with coxswains from Cornell and Washington and a couple of other schools.
Yeah.
And that was a mile race. So that was a competition that I rowed in, not with a coxswain.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And that was fun.
That was fun, yeah.
One of the other things we did was on the opposite side of Poughkeepsie on the Hudson River are the Palisades, a large rocky wall.
Yep.
And Coach Wallace thought it would be a great idea if we painted a W on the Palisades. So I and the rest of the pickle boat arranged to go over, row across the river, climb up the Palisades, carry the buckets of paint and equipment, and we painted a big red W. Probably the letters were 30 feet high.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you have to dangle with ropes off the Palisades? How did you actually paint that then?
Well, it wasn't a
Oh, was it a sheer face?
Sure,
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, about 40 years later, I went on the train, past it, I could still see the red W.
Oh, no kidding.
It was still there. Some of the trees had grown up
Sure,
around it,
sure.
but it was all there.
Wow.
Well, after the race was over, after the varsity race was over, there was a train that followed along the river bank, and it was rigged up with flat cars with bleachers on it,
Oh.
so people would watch and follow.
And follow. Wow.
Follow it,
That is
yeah.
super cool. Yeah.
And I had a chance to ride in that while the varsity race was on. Following that, one of the rich alumni from New York invited the crew down. So we all drove to New York, and they put us up in a hotel. And that was my first experience in New York.
Yeah.
And
You were in the city.
in the city.
In the city. Yeah.
And I remember here most of the crew were farm boys from Wisconsin, and a person like myself who had never been 50 miles from
Yeah.
home, and
Yep. Now you're in the big city.
I have two memories of that. One of which was the fact that we went to, somehow we went to what they call a taxi dance.
Oh yeah.
A taxi dance is when you paid a little admission to get in, and there was this big dance hall with girls.
Yeah.
And you give each one of them a dime for a dance or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah, like renting a taxi, right? You rent a girl for a dance.
Yeah. So,
Did you do that?
so we did that.
Yeah. The coach give you some money to do that, or
We all had a
a little bit of money? Yeah.
little spending money. Well, then came the problem of, I'd written out to Poughkeepsie.
Yeah. How'd you get home?
How do you get home? The coach said we're taking the Midnight Express or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a direct route to Chicago.
Yeah.
It left New York in the evening and arrived in Chicago in the morning.
Yep.
He said, "I'll tell you what." He said, "Get on the train. And when the conductor comes down and asks for your ticket, tell him the coach has got it. He's got the block of tickets."
Mhm.
And he told all the rest of the crew to tell him the same thing. So he could never get an accurate count of how many people, because there was one more
than
passenger
the block.
there were
Yeah.
tickets.
Uh-huh.
And so I rode the Midnight Express from New York to Chicago.
Yeah.
On the first class train without a ticket. But I had to keep moving.
To avoid the conductors.
Yeah. Well, in the second year.
I'll tell you what, Dad. Let's take a break, and we'll do the second year on the next tape, if that's all right.
Yeah, okay.
All right.